Hello, welcome to the Spring Acrylic Portrait Painting Challenge Masterclass, lesson number 2, part 2, sketching your portrait so that you can paint with confidence. I'm glad you're here today, and thank you for the hard work you put in on that first part of the sketch, where we just blocked in the initial proportions and kind of loosely got everything portrayed here. Now we're going to go a little bit further today, and we're going to be adding more detail to the sketch. Hopefully we'll get it done here within this next segment of the lesson. If not, we'll go to a part number 3, and we'll find out by the end of today how that works. But anyway, thank you so much for the effort you put in. You're doing a great job, and I want to let you know again, it is challenging to paint a portrait, but you can do it. I know that God is blessing you. He's given you this talent, this skill, this desire to be able to paint a portrait. And whatever your goal is at the end of this, whether you want to paint a portrait of your loved one, maybe you'd like to do some commissioned paintings for friends and family members, enter your work into shows, or just beautify your home, I'd like to help you achieve those goals. And you'll get the skills that you need through this exercise, through this portrait that we do together. All right, so I'd encourage you to take this portrait painting challenge. If you haven't signed up yet, you can still do that. realisticacrylic.com/acrylic-portrait-painting-challenge. It's free to sign up, and when you sign up, I will send you the welcome kit, and that includes the reference photo, the supplies list, everything else you need to paint along with us. Well, except for maybe the actual paint brushes and the paints. You'll need to go out and buy those. But anyway, I look forward to teaching you, so go ahead and sign up. Like I said, that is free, and we look forward to having you as part of this challenge. All right, let's dive in here with a word of prayer, and we'll get started. Father, I ask a blessing here on this class. I pray that you'd help me to be able to teach this next part of the sketching process. I pray you bless the students as they're working on their portrait. Just give them a sense of confidence and peace, Lord, that they can do this. And we know, Lord, that with you we can do all things. So guide this process, and I pray that you would bless the students with good health and everything they need to be able to paint this. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, well, let's begin here. Let's begin. We're going to basically just start to block in some of the lines and different parts that need to be done on the face. We'll kind of radiate out from there, but let's zoom in. And if you find yourself using the eraser a lot, that's normal. Don't worry about it. It's just part of the process. If you have one of these mechanical erasers, it does make it easier. A white cap eraser works well. You can also use the larger white erasers, and those will work just as well too. But we're going to continue, I think, just by adding some detail to his face and his hair, and we're just kind of going to work out from there. So I'm going to tighten up some of the lines that I made initially on his face, and let's just zoom in a little bit more. And we're going to adjust maybe some of the angles. So this is where we can get things a little more accurate. If by any chance we got away on the process, we can just tighten things up right here. All right, so we have the hair kind of sticking out, and we want to show some of, maybe a little bit of the texture of the hair without overdoing it. We want to keep this fairly simple. And again, in this sketch, the goal is not to create something that looks like a finished drawing, but just to, create something that will work. And as a foundation for the paint. That's all we need. So I'm not going to try to make it look like a finished drawing here. We have the nose coming down, and I think the nose maybe got a little bit large, so we're just going to shave that down a bit. Just get a little more of the actual sense of those proportions. Now, we can block in part of the shading structure that does help. So I'm just going to block that in a little bit here and just basically signify that a good portion of this will be in shadow. But we don't have to actually put in all the shading. We've got the thumb here. We're gonna make sure the visual weight for that is good. The fingers, just try to tighten those up a little bit, make sure we've got the knuckles in the right place, and try to get some of the highlights on there established with a little more specificity, if I can say that word, specificity. We want to just show the where the highlights are going to be and how they're going to look on his fingers. So that's important. And so you can see in the reference photo, we'll just show you that, there's some really interesting shapes here on the fingers. So we've got these highlights right here, and you know, these different shapes, and so we really want to make sure we can portray those well. All right, so I'll just zoom in. Let's go back to this. Try to get these highlights portrayed. And the highlights on the hands, they make a specific shape, and we want to see that specific shape that's being created and try to render that as best we can. But you don't want to put down too many lines or it can get a little bit difficult to see. So try to keep it as simple as you can, because you can always paint it in later. Yep, you can always paint it in later. So I think this highlight needs to come out just a bit further. And then there's this highlight, and I'm just using a bit of a shading to fill it in and let myself know that this will be in shadow, and I'm creating these forms. Zoom in a little bit more so we can see that. And I think that that'll be enough for now. I don't want to overdo it. To show that, you know, his wrist is in shadow, and we've got this form right here in shadow. So we just basically kind of loosely, lightly sketch that all in. We still want to show some of the other areas as well that we've got delineated. I'm going to block in a little bit of the form of the hair, some of the directional strokes for the top of the hair, but I don't think we need to do all of them. So as we put in some of these lines, it'll just signify that when we're painting how that needs to appear. And then we're going to darken this area below the hand ever so slightly. We're going to start getting in a little bit of the form of the sleeves. I just want to show you what I did on the hair. I'm sorry I didn't have that zoomed in there. So we just put in some directional strokes here. We shaded this in right here and here. All right, so again, we don't need to get every bit of texture in for the hair, but just a general feeling of what's happening. That's all we need. Just a general feeling, and then we'll just fill this in. And then I'm going to create a distinction between the vest and the collar of the shirt. We have some of the highlights here. We want to get that form in. Distinction between the arm area, the opening of the vest, and the shoulder. And then this is a pretty important distinction too, and that would be this is going to actually have to change. This part of the vest is going to be a little thinner up here. I'm just going to erase that. And then we want to show this distinction here of the seam of the shirt. flow this down, and then you get a couple wrinkles in here, a couple more wrinkles, and then we want to get a larger wrinkle. Let's just zoom down so you can see that, what's happening. So we're putting in some wrinkles here on the sleeve. We've got a larger wrinkle right here. Another one right there. We have a kind of a nice rounded shape. So this shows the architecture of the wrinkles and how they work. They look a little bit different than what you would think. There's actually a loop, almost a teardrop shape, and then there's a shadow underneath that that kind of supports that architecture of the wrinkle. We've got another one right here that creates a triangular shape, and that's being affected by the lighting coming from the lamp. So I always want to keep in mind that light source and what it's doing. And so that lamp is really the main light source, and that's casting these strong highlights on the sleeve. And here it's going to be lighter and more of it's illuminated, but because the arm is more in front of the lamp on this side, this right arm is more in front of the lamp, his right, our left, then that's going to be mostly in shadow and just little slivers will be getting illuminated. Whereas the sleeve here on his left arm, or our right as we see it, more of that's being illuminated. So we need to make that distinction in our minds and really be aware of that as we sketch. Okay, so we're going to continue to add these highlights here. And we'll put in a couple of cross wrinkles on the arm, and this shows the tension that's taking place there. We have, let's see, let's zoom in a little bit more so you can see that. So right here, a couple of interesting wrinkles. You've got what looks like a wishbone shape. So you want to see that wrinkle coming out. Actually, I have the angle wrong. The angle does come up a little higher. We'll bring that up just a little higher like that. There's another shape right there. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I'd like to let the paint do more of that work than do it all in the sketch. But I do want to get part of that process done. And these wrinkles actually, they're a little bit off. Just bring this one up a little bit higher. This one comes up at about like that, and then this one right here, and this one right here. All right, that'll be good. And then let's work on these other wrinkles. Got one right there. This main wrinkle here, and then we have one that's like that. So that's kind of the main junction of the sleeve. So you can see as we go down here. And then you really have to keep your pencil nice and sharp for this. Then we've got this wrinkle here. And this is where it's being more strongly illuminated by the lamp. So you want to make sure we get the architecture of these wrinkles in. And then this is the opening of the sleeve, so that would be, you know, like where you button up your cuff. And we want to show that part right here. And so this whole section is in shadow, and I'm just going to signify that by putting some very light lines there. And then I want to show, let's see, this distinction here and this thin little shape there. Just basically signify those differences. And I guess this could actually move over just a bit more. All right, so again, I want to make these lines pretty light because This is a white shirt, so don't press too hard with your pencil. Just use very light amount of pressure. You can get a little darker in these spots. I'll show you on the reference photo. Now, even though it's a white shirt, this value here is quite dark. And so that's in shadow. That could get a little darker as you sketch, but not too much darker. But as you paint it, this area here will be quite dark. Interestingly, it'll almost be as dark as this cover of the Bible. So just something to keep in mind as you're working on this. Okay, we're going to continue on here, and now let's do a little bit of the text of the Bible. And I just want to maybe refine the edges a bit and bring this down. This actually intersects the other line a little bit. I want to make sure I'm showing that. We can just put in a little, we don't have to write in any text on here, just signify it with a bit of shading. Just a kind of a horizontal shape, and then here we've got, you know, this shading here signifying that the lamp is illuminating the other side. So don't write any text on there or even any lines. Just put in this area of shading right at the fold between the spine, the interior of that Bible. That's all you need to do. And you can shade this edge of the page on the other side, and that should be good. Just doing that. I think my angle might be just ever so slightly off on this, so I'm going to adjust that. Looks like this actually is going to I'm just need to double check this here, make sure I've got this right. This line comes out to about here, and then here and here, yeah. So I have to make sure I have that distinction correct. This is going to be the cover. Come out a little bit further. Alright, just have to make a couple adjustments on here. So you have the folded part. And then this part here where the spine is, I'm going to shade that in just so we know that that is shaded. It's darker, it's not being illuminated by the light. And then here's that bottom part of it. Just fill this in. Fill this in. Okay, and then we can draw in the glasses on the table. I didn't get that done from before, so let's do that. We've got the stem starting right here on this particular grid line, right below the spine. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then it's up from the bottom just 1. So this is where you'd want to place it, and we've got the angle of the bow of the glasses kind of like this. And let's just kind of loosely block this in where it might be. Get this bow here. That comes up maybe about to 2/5 the way up on the bottom. And then we just quickly draw in these lenses. So that's gonna be challenging because keep in mind they are in perspective, they are foreshortened. So really try to get the overall sense of the shape. You're gonna probably end up making them too wide just like I'm tempted to do here. But just try to get the overall sense of the form like that. And you want to make sure that they're tall enough. That's the other thing too. Okay, so I'm going to basically leave them like that. There's a bit of a shadow being cast. You can put that down. Now let's do a little more detailing on the lamp. So with the lamp we have a doily on the table, and so that's part of the look. Want to make sure we get those wrinkles and those little divots that flow out from the doily. So we just space those little kind of oval shapes underneath. That's what they are. Just another divot, curves in like that, and then it gets compressed as we get toward the top. It's all foreshortened, so you're not going to have those little divots being shown as prominently there. Then we have the glass. Well, first we have the basin, the bowl, and we want to make sure we're portraying that accurately, and the visual weight of it. I did make a couple of adjustments previously. I'm going to need to use my electric on this one. Electric eraser does work better. We just want to make sure that the chimney is not too thick on the top. We have it narrow enough. I'm gonna cut this in just a little bit. Let's bring this up. Make sure we have the whole thing in the shot. And I'm going to just trim this a little bit on the top. Make it a bit narrower. I want to get that burner part moved over a little bit to the right. A couple of round shapes there we want to capture. For that, I'm not going to put in every little detail, just enough. Just enough detail that it looks like what it should look like. Main thing is to have that top part to be narrow enough. Yeah, currently it looks like it's just a little bit wide, and getting the shape of this chimney will be tricky. It will be tricky. I'm just going to let you know ahead of time. And if you don't get it perfect, then you can always adjust it in the painting stage. I'll probably have to do that on mine too. But I think it just needs to be a little narrower on the top. And maybe a little wider on the bottom. Just going to erase out a bit. Try to get this a little wider down here. All right, that's good. Now let's take a look at this kerosene container. We're just going to widen this a bit. Actually, let's just change the top part and make that a little bit narrower, because if it's going to be filling a lamp, it actually would have more of a narrow spout on the top like this. So we're just going to change that a little bit. Because in the original reference photo, I used a gas can. You know, like I said, I had modeled for this and I set up the shot, and I just grabbed an old metal gas can that we had in our shed. But kerosene can is going to have a little bit of a different spout. It's going to be narrower so that it could actually fill a lamp without tipping, without dripping all over. So I'm just going to show that form there a bit differently and make that change. Right, now we have the tray below this tray where the servant would have a wick trimmer and a cleaning cloth for the glass for the chimney, and we just want to get that rendered in there. Have a little bit of the shading put in for it. Okay, this part will be in shadow. And on this this kerosene can, part of that will be in shadow too, so we just want to portray that. Put in a little shading just to signify that most of it will be in shadow. This whole stem area will be in shadow, and that shadow will cover the top as well, like that. All right, and now let's see if we can just portray this little bit of lighting on the table. Here's a bit of a spotlight, and I just want to basically designate where that's going to be. We'll just say right about there. That's the reflection from the lamp. Now let's go to the framed picture on the wall. In this case, it's a map. And so we're going to add the shadow there. Now in the original painting I did smoldering wick, I basically, the reason I used a map was so that it symbolized the different choices we could make in life. And a lot of times our consternation and frustration and discouragement comes over opportunities we've missed, poor choices we've made, or just wondering what if I had done this? What if I had done that? Or what should I do now? Even, you know, when we're facing difficult decisions, what should I do now? I don't know what to do next. And so the map then signifies those different choices we can make, and how this man here, as he's at the table, is praying and seeking God over some decisions he can make. And that's why I purposely chose a map for this framed picture on the wall. So all these elements I have in here are very symbolic and they're intentional. You could put anything you want in that picture. It doesn't have to be the map, but if you're wanting to paint it along with this instruction, I'll be putting a map in here, and that's how I'll be demonstrating it. So we can put in a little bit of the frame texture. I don't want to overdo the detail on that. That's a lot to sketch in, and we don't have to necessarily put every little bit in there. We do want to get an overall sense of how this frame is going to look, and some of the scroll work and Victorian kind of ornamentation that they have going on in there. And so I'm kind of seeing something like this. There's these little curly-Q patterns in there. And so if you can portray some of that, I think you'll do well. But again, a lot of that can just be painted in. So I'm just getting in a little bit of the sense of it. And then here we've got that miter joint. And I'm going to put in a little bit of shading. So it looks different here because the light's not really hitting it. And I'm just going to get a sense of some of what's taking place in the scroll work without overdoing every little detail. But I do want to get a sense of the shadow on this first miter joint, because that's not going to be hitting the light where it's aimed. Alright, so we do have an inset here, and that actually is the frame casting a shadow on the image. And then here we've got, you know, part of the map and everything. We can kind of portray that as well. We'll start putting in some of the detail work for this. And it is at a slight angle, so it's not perfectly square with the grid lines, but it is, I think the higher we go up, the more square it gets. So it's the angle steeper down here, and then as we get up a little higher, just based on perspective, the line and angle gets a little more close to the grid line, but it's not straight. So you don't want to make that mistake of lining up this line here with your grid lines. It is at an angle in relationship to your grid lines. Same thing with this. This is at a slight angle too right here. But I think as it gets toward the middle, this actually will be pretty parallel. Distance between this part of the map and this part should be pretty even. But here and here, these parts will not be even. So there's just a slight lean in the line this way, and a slight lean in the line that way. Just really try to follow that reference photo as much as you can, and that'll give you some ideas on how to do it. So here we've got a little bit of a pattern that we want to put in. They're kind of these geometric shapes, and we've got like 4 of them here per square. So we've got one. Let's see, let's just make sure we get this right. Got one that flows in down here, another one that kind of cuts up in. I need to get a sip of water. Another that flows up, and then up. How many do we have? We've got, yeah, basically about 4, and I want to make sure they're equidistant from each other. So I'm just putting in these little shapes, these angled shapes. Another one, and then this one here is a little bit different. So now we're going to have an angled shape going this way. Let's see what's going on. It's just a lot of complexity, but I don't want to over detail the sketch. I've said this several times, I know, but I don't want to spend too long on the sketch at the exclusion of the painting, because a lot of this can be done in the painting stage. So just put in those forms, and then we've got a little more detailing here below the map, and then we have kind of this imagery on the map too of, looks like a pirate or a buccaneer or some kind of a sailor, you know, from the 1700s. And we can just basically show those forms. Again, I'm just going to make it almost abstract. I don't want to overdo it. I don't want the focal point to be on that part of it. And then we've got basically under this map of the world, there's what look like some trees, and we're just going to block in those really simply. Again, without going too much into detail. Basically fill this in. We just show the form of some of the leaves, branches, and then this brush undergrowth underneath. There's a boat there. We can put that in. It doesn't have to look entirely realistic. Again, it's made to look like an old illustration, which back in those days they weren't always realistic. They were kind of idealized. So we have a boat with some sails being blown in the wind, it looks like. And we just show some of those forms. There's a sun there, it looks like, as well, with a face on it, just to show you that it's not entirely realistic, and it's got rays coming out. So we just kind of want to portray what we're seeing here and keep this pretty simple. And then we're going to add this thing that says Terra Nova on it. And that's kind of a big circle thing, and I'm just going to put in a couple of things signifying Terra Nova. I don't want to make it too complex. There's like a fish here, or a big whale, and then these latitudinal lines will give us an idea that it's actually the Earth. And it says Pacificus, but I'm not going to write everything on here. Just want to keep it pretty general. Put in that whale. It's like maybe a seal, I don't know. And then something else is written. There's a line going across. There's a line going up, which is to the left of this actual grid line, so don't get confused by that. This is actually part of the globe here. The grid line will be painted out. That could be a little confusing, but this line here will be painted out, and then this line that we drew will remain. So I just made it a little bit darker so we know the difference. And then this globe kind of has a little bit of a thickness to it. So put that in. And let's put in a continent. That'll really be needed. So this is looks like South America, and we just put in the shape of that continent. America, Murray, and then something else. And then we have Central America going into North America. Yeah, so that just gives us an idea of what that is. Now, see what else we can do in this. All right. And I want to just get a little bit of a distinction on the bottom of this frame and just refine that a bit more. And again, if you want to use a ruler and that helps you out, by all means, that's fine. You can do that. You can take a ruler here and just go over your lines on this frame and just double check them and make sure they're straight. And that's fine, especially after you've kind of free-handed them in. You can basically go over and just tighten them up a little bit. It doesn't hurt. Okay, so with that being done, I want to take a look at it and see how much more do I want to do on this. Maybe got a couple of wrinkles right under his armpit area that I can put in there very simply. Let's zoom in here on that part. Yeah, we'll just get a couple of little wrinkles here on that area. And it's just going over the back, showing his vest. We have a wrinkle right here. We're going to put that in on the vest. And then I think on the top of his vest there's a slight wrinkle there. I'd like to get that in. Just want to refine that angle up there a bit better. So you have a wrinkle that shows part of the neck and then a crease right here. Let's just go up there and actually show you what's going on. So you have a crease right here. We'll put that in. A crease right there. And then what I did is I just kind of defined this edge. This top edge I had that really ambiguous. So we got in a nice angle right up here and here, that little dimple and divot. And then we have a little wrinkle right here. We'll put that in. Bit of shading right there. Right there. And we'll get a little bit of a divot here on his clothing and make sure we get the edge of his chest area and how that relates to the arm right there. This is the bottom of his neck. Put that in. And then here's the elbow. Just go down to that. You can come down a little bit further. And we have this bit of shading here, this shadow being cast over the table. There's a wrinkle being cast from his elbow, or I should say a reflection is what I meant to say, a reflection of these wrinkles on the table because the table's kind of glossy. And we can take a ruler and just really make sure the edge of the table is nice and straight. Just go over your freehand lines and tighten that up a bit. Go over the other side here and tighten this up a little bit. And then over the top, same thing. As long as you know you've got everything roughly in the right place. Just skip over though, over that lamp. You don't want to draw the line and intersect the lamp. Right here there's an edge. We can define that a little bit more too on this left hand side. Right there. We get a little bit of the thickness of the table. I might just want to erase that part out. And then the thickness of the table, we'll put that in below. And that's going to, oh, how far would that come down? Not too far. I would say maybe about a ½ inch in thickness, something like that. Probably about like that. And should actually be just a little wider in the front. Just out of perspective, it would be a little bit pinched here and a little bit thicker right here in the front. Right here. Because that's the part that is coming toward us. And so due to the rules of perspective, it's going to get narrower as we go back. So on this side here, we can add the thickness of the table there. And again, it's going to just get a bit narrower as we go back. There is a little bit of an overhang on it too, so we probably want to portray that as well. And I don't know, maybe that can be just a little bit thicker here. This part here will be very much in shadow though, so it's going to be very dark, and we have the legs right here. So right here we'll put in a leg and a leg of the table. Here there'll be a leg kind of curved in. That part's going to be very dark, so it's not that important that everything is painted super clearly. We just want it to be pretty much, you know, visible there. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe the table will be even a little thicker than this. So let's just add a little more dimension to it. Because it is Victorian times, they had some good furniture. So we'll just add a little more dimension to it here. Make it come down a bit further. I'll just erase that part at the top. Something about like that. And then this part here, I'll make that a little thicker too on the other side. That's fine. Again, I just want to show that there's some thickness to this here. Okay, that should be good. And that'll be somewhat ambiguous on the bottom. We'll let it get a little more painterly down there as we work on it. The main part of distinction will be this edge right here. This edge here will be very important. So this light part and then the dark part. And this down here will have some lost edges, and let that kind of fade out. You want to look at everything else and see what else can be done. Get a sense of the shading on the forehead a little bit tighter, just darken that. The details on the forehead really will be done more in the painting stage than in the sketch. So that's something we'll really concentrate on there. The expression, a lot of this is being portrayed in just the positioning of his hands and then the actual gesture of his face, and you know how his head is positioned, how his neck is positioned, his arms, and the gesture of the body. That's what's really communicating the emotion here. Now let's just tighten up this last little bit on his arm. Get a couple of little wrinkles here under the vest. And show a little bit of the sleeve wrinkling there. We'll have a bit of the wrinkles on the top. That's important. Wrinkle here and a wrinkle there. I just want to put those in like that. And then we have these coming down. So how many do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a few. We have these going transverse in the other direction, so that'll be important to make sure that we've got those distinctions of these wrinkles and how they interact with each other. Get a little bit of that distinction right here as we portray where the upper arm meets the lower arm and some of the wrinkles that are created. And I want to get a bit of the distinction on the elbow. It's a wrinkle right there and a wrinkle there. And then here we can have the sleeve kind of bow out just a bit. And then we want to show the distinction here of the bottom part of his wrist and the palm. That'll be important, to really portray that accurately. me fill that in. I guess the wrist could be a little bit thicker up here. All right. And I'm just going to do a little more detailing on his head, and we're going to call this done. I don't want this lesson to get too incredibly long. It's already a little bit over, which is fine. But so it can upload and everything, I don't like it to get too long. All right, and it looks like he's got a little bit of a sideburn here. I want to put that in just so it looks like it's appropriate for the time. A little bit of a sideburn and a beard. Okay, and then I'll shade in this area below the sleeve, just so we know there's a distinction there, and the sleeve is going to be quite a bit lighter. Excuse me. And then we'll look at the curtains quick. We'll get this wrinkle up here. Let's see. It's just a bit of a distinction and some shading right over here, close up about in this area. And then here we have a little bit of a distinction as well. And then here's the main edge. So we got the main opening of the curtain there. Just shade that in so we know that that needs to be done, and then we'll shade a little bit on this other side, show this other wrinkle flowing up. That's a big part of the form. And then this all can be kind of shaded in. We have the chair. I didn't really do the detail for that. So I just want to finish up with the detail on the chair and putting in these spindles. 1, 2, 3, 4. There should be 4 spindles. So I want to make sure I get those in there. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Just barely visible. And then we have this curved part, and it flows out like that. So we want to get that little bit of a hook on there. We want to get this major spindle on it, the outside part, and there we go. And that just shows that that is indeed a chair he's sitting at. Okay. All right, and I think I'm going to stop off here on this. Yeah, there might be a couple more adjustments I would make on this. I'll just do one little adjustment on a sleeve. Oh, it's hard to finish, isn't it? At some point you just have to say the sketch is good enough and it has enough visual information for us to be able to know where to go on this. So there might be some adjustments I'll need to make in the painting stage. And if there's any other future adjustments, we can do that in a supplemental video. Actually, I tell you what. I just noticed something on the hands. I don't want to rush this I don't want to rush this. I do notice his fingers could be a little bit longer, so let's just double check this here and make sure we've got the fingers long enough. These fingers actually should come out just a bit further from what I can see. So we're going to bring them out closer to the edge. Yep, closer to the edge here. And then this last pinky finger can be a bit smaller. Yeah, that one can be a bit smaller, but the other ones need to be a little longer. Just get the fingernails in there. Because the hand is very important. We want to make sure we've got that accurate. Okay, like I said, when I'm actually working on this, there'll be some adjustments that'll be made during that painting stage. But I wanted to get this lesson finished here within 2 sessions just to keep us on schedule. And so this is what we have. So I would love to see your sketch and how you're doing. Please drop me an email, post something in our Facebook group, Realistic Acrylic Portraits. But I'm looking forward to seeing your progress on the sketch. And overall, I'm very happy with what we've been able to accomplish today. We were able to take the sketch from a very loose semblance of what it looks like, just kind of the major block in, and we added detail through the whole thing. So I'm very happy with that. And again, I'm so looking forward to seeing your work on this and what you accomplish in your portrait. So definitely keep in touch with me via the Facebook group. Shoot me an email. Let me know how you're doing. In the school, if you're an All Access member, post a comment under the video lessons. You can also request a critique as well. So I would love to hear from you and look forward to helping you with this portrait. It's going to be fun working on this black and white painting. You're going to learn a lot of skills in painting wrinkles on clothes, hands, the lighting, the chiaroscuro look of this reference photo, and portraying the drama of the painting, getting different elements together, perspective, and again, like I said, monochromatic, actually knowing how to use a glazing technique to effectively create a sense of light and shadow within a monochromatic format, and using the appropriate mixtures of colors and medium to achieve it. So we're going to learn a lot together, and by the end of it, the goal is to have a beautiful portrait we can be proud of. So again, looking forward to seeing your progress on this. Keep in touch. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.